my utter delight today to introduce the wonderful selection of MAP, of the modern and contemporary collection that they have put together, which is now going to be open for the viewing of a public. This is the singular vision of Abhishek Poddar, somebody who has had a great interest, not just in the aspect of collection, but also in the relationships that he has desired to establish with individual art practitioners, artisans, and his own curiosity to always learn and to know more. And I think it is this that really creates the preciousness of a vision of an individual and of how a collection becomes significant and valuable to a nation. We are so fortunate that despite having something like a pandemic today, we are still able to use technology that the 21st century really has gifted to us and prepared us to be able to share the opening of our museum and all that it has through this wonderful ability to share not only with our country but to the world at large the amazing factors of belief and faith that one individual has had and that has given birth to this beautiful, beautiful museum that we have today. What I notice and what is extremely exciting to see is that the curatorial vision and imagination has been superlative when it comes to the modern and contemporary section of the museum. I think that the endeavor has been to let the story of preoccupations that Indian artists have had over all these many years present itself via the manner in which the collection itself has been put together. Every country has artists that place themselves in the reality of their existence, and it is that reality which actually allows us to know how the story of a country, how the history of a particular place reveals itself. I hope that when all of us look at this collection that MAP presents to us, we get that, we understand that, we partake of that. The most important part of a museum is that it really is a democratized space. A museum opens its doors to everyone. It doesn't know any discrimination. It invites you in, it welcomes you. You can be very tiny, you can be an old individual. It's a space that really holds a corner, a nook, a little discovery for everyone. And it's this that really is the most exciting factor. We need to encourage the youth of our country to see the value of art, to see this as a territory to be engaged with, and to be encouraged to find their location, to find their skills that allow them to be creative, expressive people. Art holds a huge space of employment. Museums are not just spaces that are there for art to be viewed, but it also holds spaces of research, of study, of management. And it is this entire encompassing factor that we need to understand as a nation. I am so delighted that MAP brings us this opportunity that allows us to encourage ourselves to find more areas that we can identify with, both to contribute and to partake.
Thank you, Rekha, for that very eloquent introduction into all things art, and especially the modern and contemporary collection at MAP. This part of the collection has played a significant role in the foundation of MAP, quite literally, when the founder Abhishek Poddar actually sold some of his modern and contemporary works to raise the money for the land and the building. And much earlier, when he began collecting, it was these works that first piqued his interest and had him wandering off in different directions to build what has now become this extensive museum collection. We thought you would enjoy a glimpse of some of the highlights of our modern and contemporary section, and I'm going to walk you through a selection. I'd like to begin with the work of an artist I hold in great respect for the rigor she brings to her practice and the mysteries that unfold as we enter her world layer by layer. This hemp fiber sculpture by Mrinalini Mukherjee, an unorthodox material for sculpting that she worked with early in her career before she moved to ceramics and bronze casting. She drew her inspiration from nature, local traditions, and mythology to create a hybrid sort of imagery that was on one hand almost futuristic and yet reminiscent of ancient temples where the origin of divine forms were rooted in the natural world. These works were reflective of an India post-independence when the arts were coming into their own. By marrying traditional craft techniques with her formal training at art school, she created a visual language that was distinctly modern. Let's take a look at Nag or snake, which is a likely reference to the cobra and the serpent deities. Serpent worship is practiced in India. Naga Panchami is a festival associated with snake worship, where milk and incense are offered to these deities in return for health and the well-being of the family. But here, Mukherjee's sculpture dwells more likely on the sensuousness of the serpent that is also seen as a phallic symbol. While the erotic is an unmissable feature of all Mukherjee's sculptures, including Nag, with their phallic shapes enfolded in leaves, orifices, and fertility motifs, the artist herself never regarded these works as specifically religious or sexual. On the contrary, what interested her far more was, and I quote, the feeling of awe when you walk into the small sanctum of a temple and look up to behold an iconic presence. Let's move from Mukherjee's Nag to quite a different visual of the serpent, but one no less erotic. Jogen Chaudhary's Reminiscences of a Dream, too, was produced after a stint in Paris when he was searching for a mode of expression that was original but drew on indigenous forms. He relocated to Kolkata after India was partitioned, and those were very highly charged political and social times. And you can see that seep into his work. The amorphous forms that covered his canvases, degenerate, sometimes grotesque, are perhaps social commentaries on the Bengali middle class. In this early work, we see the erotic note that enters his practice, drawing from fantasy, imagination, and his dreams. Chaudhary speaks of the strange motifs that appear on his canvases: snakes, creepers, fish. These were some of the things that he often encountered during his childhood and were to him both sensuous and psychologically disturbing. We see these elements in this work, particularly in the rendering of the figure below the snake that resembles a female breast, and the dark backgrounds that evokes this dreamlike quality. The lady in a pink sari is a more conventional view of a woman, but Jamini Roy brings such beauty and grace to this portrait with his elegant strokes. Born in Bankura in West Bengal, Roy began by painting Impressionist and Post-Impressionist landscapes and portraits, as these were the styles taught in government art schools of that time. But he soon tired of this and began to search for a more Indian mode of expression, rooted in the imagery of the rural Bengal that he knew. And he discovered that in the work of the Patuas of Kalighat, traditionally roving performers who would travel from one village to another, presenting their scrolls and performing the stories painted on them. His paintings are characterized by a vibrant palette, flat strokes, bold outlines, and the elongated eyes of figures, typical of folk traditions. And you can see all of these elements reflected in this work. Created towards the beginning of his artistic shift, this painting with a woman coyly looking away from the viewer is perhaps a version of the popular theme of the Nayika, or lady at her toilet. The flat application of color and the use of almost calligraphic sweeping lines that he borrowed from the Patuas enhanced the simplicity and the beauty of the object. Roy's imagery evolved continuously throughout his practice, moving deeper into the folk genre and creating a significant idiom in Indian modernism. Another artist who worked hard to create a painterly language uniquely his own was Manjit Bawa. His work is an important part of the collection, not only for its quality, but also for the close relationship he shared with MAP's founder, Abhishek Poddar. There are over 30 of his works in the collection, but I thought that the Sultan of Amman was just the perfect foil to Roy's lady in a pink sari. Like Jamini Roy, Bava began with impressionistic landscapes before he decided to break away from the Western ideals of painting to create his signature style, and drew on the Indian tradition of storytelling and our rich archive of myths. From the 1970s onwards, his canvases depicted free-floating figures against a vivid background of traditional Indian colors such as red, yellow, pink, violet. This painting has a Sultan of Amman against a deep and intense turmeric yellow that is inherently Indian. The flat application of bright colors, the simplicity of line and form were elements that he borrowed from the Pahari miniature tradition. The 1980s marks the appearance of this distinctive figural form as seen in this painting. The figure of the Sultan is rounded, fluid, almost boneless, with gentle and elongated features. It is this pure aesthetic sense, the lyrical contouring of the figures, and his skill with color that makes Manjit Bava one of India's foremost modernists. Yet another artist who shrugged off an urban upbringing in search of an Indian ethos was Meera Mukherjee. One of India's most compelling sculptors, she believed that some of the best sculpting techniques were to be found in the villages of India, practiced by traditional craftsmen for centuries. She spent years living in the tribal regions of Bastar, researching how these artisans used natural ingredients in their creation of sculptures, and then went on to employ this knowledge in her practice. Using the lost wax method, she innovated her own process of bronze casting. Mukherjee's works bring us everyday stories drawn from the lives of common people, and her sculptures have a lyricism that almost defy the resistance of bronze. Her subjects include fishermen, weavers, laborers, women going about their household work. In Mother and Child, she captures a moment of quiet affection between the two as the mother gently embraces her son. Her work is more concerned with human emotions and life as it plays out in public spaces. But there is a spiritual quality that she infuses her sculptures with that transport them beyond the mundane to the sublime. Let's juxtapose this moment of tender affection between mother and child with another moment in a woman's life, seemingly domestic but menacing when we look closer. In Arpita Singh's Shadow of a Chair, we notice the same motifs that keep reappearing in her work. There is the reclining woman gazing outwards, the floral motif on her dress and on the upholstery of the chair, creating a perfectly domestic scene. Two ghost-like figures float above her, and squeezed in between them, a man and a taxi. An image that recurs in other paintings even 2 decades later. All this would seem like a cozy scene until you notice the gun. And suddenly the room is an eerie claustrophobic chamber of captivity. The chair with its cheerful patterns casts a dark shadow on the wall, perhaps suggestive of the plight of women in Indian society. Singh is able to achieve this sudden transformation of the experience by the way she handles perspective, part of her training in miniatures, where she also learned how to build her narrative skills. Arpita Singh's career has evolved over more than 6 decades, beginning with her early black and white abstracts, then moving to watercolors, before shifting to oil on canvas in the 80s, the medium of her most dramatic works. Women, usually in different phases of their life, have been central to her practice, whether absorbed in their daily routine or entwined in mythic narratives. She creates a world of everyday objects with sharp brushstrokes in characteristic pink and blue tones that are abruptly disturbed by violent imagery, often lurking on the edges of her canvas in the form of guns, tanks, or malevolent figures. M.F. Husain's idealized female form in Mohini, Shankini and Padmini is a stark contrast to Arpita Singh's world and is a subject he often returned to. According to the Indian scriptures or Shastras, the 3 goddesses are meant to represent the ideals of the female form. For instance, Padmini is depicted as seated on a lotus and is meant to embody the sweet, delicate and charming fragrance of the lotus. Mohini is the essence of beauty and seduction, while Shankini is representative of power and intellect. The painting can also be related to Husain's depictions of the 3 graces, another subject that is significant to his practice. The Greek mythological theme of the 3 graces, charm, beauty, and creativity was portrayed by Hussein through his signature female form. From the idealized classical depiction of women by men to how women see themselves or would like to be seen. Champa Sarath Mohan is the young woodcut artist whose work lies at the intersection of feminism and craftsmanship. Her woman in blue pants has a female figure in a tight t-shirt and low-slung bottoms with black stilettos. She has an air of confidence as she stands with one hand on her waist and looks directly at the viewer. Her art features female figures inhabiting a world where they can explore their power, dreams, desires, and independent lives, carving out a space for themselves through a medium dominated by men. Woodcut is a laborious art form that requires a great deal of physical energy and a keen eye for detail. The craft entails a long process of drawing, carving, and layered printing, and Mohan clearly enjoys the way it urges her to extend her skills. What is interesting about some of the works in our modern and contemporary section is the collaborative nature of their making. Collaboration is at the heart of how we would like to do things at MAP. Small art collectives were organized even before MAP came into being, where artists like Manjeet Bawa, Arpita Singh, Nalini Malani, Bhupen Kakkar all came together to exchange thoughts, ideas, methods of practice, and some of these works have been the result of that creative exchange. And we hope all of you will complete that circle of collaboration by engaging with MAP to discover and enjoy our collections. And speaking of collaboration, we have a unique performance coming up next. Over the last 5 evenings, MAP has invited artists from different disciplines to respond to an artwork from the collection. The idea is that the arts are all interconnected and each enriches the other. Drawing on the tales of Durga's victory over evil and the riveting images created by 9 contemporary female artists on the goddess, Jayachandran Palashi has created a special performance on these Navadurgas or 9 Durgas. His choreography uses contemporary dance forms to represent the battle that women wage against violence, social prejudice, and gender bias. Set to an original music score, Navadurga is danced with aplomb by 6 highly talented dancers from the Attakalari Dance Company in this narrative on contemporary Indian women.
Dance for me is the life force itself. That is when I come fully alive. Every molecule in my body, the sense of being come to the fore. It is like breath or water or food for me, without which I won't be existing. The work of 9 female contemporary Indian painters on Navadurgas inspired me a lot. For me, those paintings brought to the fore the life of contemporary Indian women, their plight, their trials and tribulations, as well as the spirit of Durga itself. So I got inspiration from these aspects of contemporary women and also different facets of Durga to create a dance piece using 6 extremely talented dancers from Attakalari Dance Company. Making use of the culture port, Attakalari culture port and its facilities, we created this piece traversing through different aspects of Durga and also the trials and tribulations of contemporary Indian women today.
That was the Atakalari Dance Company responding to the Navadurgas from the MAP collection. It's time to move from one form of collaboration to another. Museums Without Borders is a unique digital initiative between MAP and institutions in India and abroad, linking collections around the world. Each episode in this series juxtaposes an artwork from MAP with an object from a partner museum, exploring commonalities and differences in style, subject, or narrative. In a time of restricted mobility, this collaboration helps to build bridges between people, collections, and institutions. This video brings together two highlights: the drummer by Tayyab Mehta from the MAP collection and the trumpeters by the acclaimed Pahari painter Nain Sukh from the British Museum. Ima Ramos and I will explore the interesting dialogue that emerges when these two artworks are placed in conversation with each other. I'm Kamini Sani, the director of MAP, and it's a pleasure to be in conversation with Ima Ramos, who joins us from the British Museum. Through this dialogue, we bring together two works from different periods, different mediums, and different styles. But they do have one thing in common: music. So let's look at how each artist uses music to tell a story.
I'm delighted to be introducing you to an exquisite Indian painting which we acquired towards the end of 2019 with the support of Art Fund and the National Heritage Memorial Fund. It's a courtly painting by Nain Sukh of Guler, the most acclaimed artist of the Pahari or hill style of painting, a style which developed in the Punjab hills of northwest India. Nain Sukh's name translates as delight of the eyes. He's one of India's greatest courtly artists, and this outstanding painting showcases his gift for dynamic composition and sensitive observation.
On the other side, we are looking at a painting from the 1980s by Tayeb Mehta, one of India's finest modernists. Mehta's traumatic memories of the partition are a recurring motive in his paintings, in particular the falling figure and the trussed bull. In this painting, we see the lone figure of a drummer beating on the drum in what appears to be a frenzy of despair. Nainsook's paintings, in contrast, show a joyous group of trumpeters, perhaps making an announcement or just part of a larger gathering of musicians.
We believe it was painted between 1735 and 1740. We see 7 musicians playing Pahari horns with long pipes known as turhi, their cheeks puffed out with the effort. It's a simple subject which is tightly composed with an energy and sense of abandon pulsing through it. The naturalistic observation of details like the puffed cheeks shows the influence of Mughal painting. Nainsook may have also been drawing on prints of Italian Renaissance paintings by Mantegna and Fra Angelico, which portray angels blowing trumpets. The setting and the context is deliberately ambiguous and almost abstract. It could have sacred or secular overtones. It might represent a courtly performance for a ruler, or else musicians celebrating the birth of a Hindu god.
Mehta's drama, too, is part of a festive celebration. In the 1980s, mother goddesses, buffalo demons, and Santhal drummers begin to appear on his canvases. It was there that he painted his landmark Shantiniketan triptych, a 3-panel representation of life and death, of mutilation but also healing. Mehta was deeply influenced by the Charak festival celebrations of the Santals, a tribal community. Drummers are an essential part of the Charak rituals. He returned to Mumbai with significant changes to his work. The figure of the drummer now begins to recur more frequently in Mehta's paintings, like this one from the Map collection, painted in 1988. He used the technique of multiple images to convey motion. In this case, the repeated image of the hand conveys the rhythm of the drummer.
It was painted at the height of Nainsook's career while he was working for the ruler of Jasrota, Raja Balwant Singh, who he seems to have been unusually close to. He painted him in a variety of intimate contexts, from trimming his beard to sitting by the fireplace. The jewel-like colour, intricate detail and poetic mood of this painting suggest it would have been seen up close and studied at leisure, enjoyed privately or among guests.
Mehta's style and pictorial language was influenced by both European modernism, as we see here in his use of cubist forms, but also through Indian miniature traditions. As in the case of Nainsook's musicians, we do not get a sense of the space the drummer is depicted in. Mehta's distorted figures are characterized by intensity and rawness. He had once witnessed a man being killed during the partition of the country, and that memory seeps into his work repeatedly. The drummer's bisected body expresses metaphorically the division of the land, but also the realization of the self, contemplating the individual and the collective, the secular and the religious. The flat planes of color and the diagonal divisions are both devices that were used by Indian miniaturists. Mehta's compositions often feature the diagonal line, a symbolic interpretation of partition. The introduction of the diagonal in his practice took place just after a residency in New York in 1968. He was already exploring the pictorial space, but after he encountered color-field paintings, particularly Barnett Newman's so-called zip paintings, he began to explore the tension between the color field and figuration, all elements that are very distinct in this variation of the drummer.
This painting had been in a private collection since being purchased by the prominent 20th century British artist Winifred Nicholson during a tour of India with her father, who was Under Secretary of State for India between 1914 and 1915. Nicholson's experiences in India and her encounter with South Asian art informed her own aesthetic exploration of light and colour. After Nicholson's death, the painting remained with her family, and this is now the first time it has entered a public collection. We have 3 other masterful paintings by Nansuk in the collection, which capture scenes of life at court, including women celebrating Diwali, the Festival of Lights, and a portrait of Balwant Singh being entertained by musicians. Together, these paintings can be seen and studied alongside the museum's extensive South Asia collections, allowing for further understanding of the full scope of the Pahari painting tradition.
So 2 masterpieces from different times and distinct spaces that use music to tell us their own stories of celebration and mourning, joy and despair, solitude and community. And a final word from our patrons, whose support and guidance has been integral to MAP's journey.
Mphasis has a strong preference for funding diversity and inclusion programs as part of our CSR initiatives. When we looked at what Museum of Art and Photography, or MAP as they call it, was going to do, I saw in that an opportunity to democratize access to art for the general public, something that was really missing in India. We're really very happy to partner with MAP in actually being their D&I partners and bringing to bear some of our experiences working with global firms in how do you really create accessibility programs. All the best to the MAP management, really supportive, really excited, and can't wait to see the museum open.
Hi, I'm Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, and as a proud founding patron of the Museum of Art and Photography, I invite you to join the MAP family. As an entrepreneur, I just want to say how important it is to build a lasting institution. And we want MAP to be this lasting and enduring institution that will reach out to all members of society and provide the platform on which everyone can appreciate our rich art and heritage. We plan to showcase a diverse collection which includes pre-modern art, modern and contemporary art, textile, craft and design, popular culture, folk and tribal art, and of course, photography. The work of MAP has been path-breaking in a number of ways, from creating curiosity in young children and people through its workshops, to inspiring everyone to be creative and aware of the cultural richness of our country. In doing so, MAP wants to change the perception of museums from being dusty old places to welcoming and exciting public spaces for all to enjoy. MAP takes particular care of accessibility and ensures that its buildings, its programming and digital activities are all accessible for people with disabilities. MAP's collection is unique as it seeks to draw connections across the different categories of art, representing and presenting a truly 21st century museum fully integrated into the fabric of our society. I am indeed proud to be a supporter of MAP, which I consider an inclusive and diverse museum for everybody to partake. There is no doubt in my mind that institutions like MAP deserve support to exist and thrive, because art benefits all of us, no matter who we are or where we come from. It helps us to think more creatively, to become more empathetic with one another, to know ourselves better. And finally, art and culture is considered to be one of the priorities of our country today because it shapes our identity and, more importantly, our history. I do hope that you will become an active member of MAP and contribute in whichever way you can to support this great upcoming institution, which I am sure will be a great legacy for posterity. A legacy not just for our city of Bengaluru, but for our country and the world. Because what we are doing at MAP is celebrating the art and heritage of a very ancient and rich country, and also ensuring that everyone can enjoy it and appreciate it. There are a number of ways to support MAP, from becoming a member to naming a seat in the Mazumdar Shaw Auditorium, or considering an even more generous contribution. Do connect with the team to find out more. Thank you.